Hello everyone. Well, it's Christmas Eve and I have no product to really get truly started on this boat. So I figured this is a good time for us to kind of go over the plan involved for the boat and why I'm doing things one way and not doing them another, why I may be doing it different from what I would with the Sea Ray, or why I'm doing things the same with the Sea Ray. I'm getting a lot of questions on Facebook and iBoats and Classic Glastron about why I'm not doing certain things or doing things another way. So I figured before we get too far into this build, it's time to go over everything together and make sure that we kind of get things laid out so that way everybody knows what my plan is and why I'm doing it a certain way. The first thing goes with the type of resin or epoxy or whatever you want to call it I'm using. Everyone's talked about the differences between resin or polyester, vinyl ester, and epoxy, and why you use or why you wouldn't use one or the other. I've always used polyester resin from my Glastron to my Sea Ray, and I'm going to be using it on this one too. And some of you guys might be saying, well, why? Why would I not use epoxy? Why would I not use vinyl ester? Well, that's kind of one of those things. It's a Chevy or a Ford type thing. It's kind of an opinion. Yes, epoxy is stronger, but it is also a lot more expensive. 30 to 40, sometimes 50%, depending on what you go with. It takes a lot longer to set up, and none of these boats were ever built with epoxy. They were always built with polyester or vinyl ester. My Sea Ray was originally built with vinyl ester from what I read in their specs. Who knows if that's 100% true or not. But the vinyl ester is just that next level after polyester. However, with polyester, you can get very, very good results with the proper prep and the proper installation of your glass against the wood. It comes down to that. It's just pure prep. Epoxy is very, very strong in its own right, and a lot of people use them for sailboats and all wood boats. That's the real thing, and if you're using high performance, you're using like carbon fiber or Kevlar glass, or it's not really glass, but Kevlar matting, that is where you're going to really use the epoxy. Yes. Now, with polyester, there are some safety concerns. Well, actually, there's safety concerns with all of it. Polyester is very flammable. It's caustic to your health. You have to wear a charcoal-based respirator when you're using it. You have to make sure it's in a well-ventilated area. And if you're not using it in a well-ventilated area, like I won't be because, we're working inside of a garage, it's kind of cold outside, make sure you use heaters that do not put out a flame. It's like gasoline, the vapors are flammable. The stuff is also, the stuff you use to thicken it, you can't breathe. So there are some drawbacks, but there's a plus, is it's very low cost. You've got to know how to work with it though. Epoxy doesn't have any odor and is not flammable. However, there are some people that have some severe allergies to it. You're really supposed to wear a respirator working with epoxy also. And I forget who it was, but a friend of mine is messing around with epoxy, was doing some stuff with some surfboards and stuff like that. And he had a huge reaction to it and had to go to the hospital. He can't even be around it, the fumes or anything like that. It's just awful. So, you're going to have the problem with both. Is the polyester, you have to, deal with the flammability and just the overall odor and the stink. But you can get over that, it's a good option. So let's go over the layup schedule, or how we're going to do it. Go back to the Sea Ray, and remember that I used 1708 and chop strand 1.5 ounce. 1708 stands for I want to say it's 17 pound rated or woven or the stitch mat with 0.8 chop strand on the back of it. Then I use 1.5 ounce chop strand for kind of finishing materials and blending things in, making it look all pretty. So you look at a normal layup on like a stringer or something like that. I've seen it several different ways, and I've done it different ways. So what we're going to do with this one is like the Sea Ray. With any fiberglass layup, you cannot put woven or stitch mat or anything else right next to each other. You have to have a chop strand or some type of layer in between it. That's the beauty of 1708, is that it has chop strand on the back of it. So you can do 1708, 1708, 1708, 1708, just keep layering on top of each other. You don't have to have anything in between it. If you need to build the thickness and you need a thicker, and you wanted to save a little bit of money, let's say You wanted to do 3 layers to get thickness of 1708, but you really didn't need the strength. You could do 1708, a layer of 1.5 or 2 ounce chop strand, and then another layer of 1708, and then finish it off with chop strand to make it look nice. So on the Glasstron, what we're going to try to do, or the Carlson, we're going to try to be heroes, okay? I'm going to try to go up and over the stringers in one fell swoop. In the C-Ray, remember I had really, really tall stringers, and I had to do, so I did one short tab, and then I did a long tab, and then we went up and over the stringer with a cap. Well, with this, because we have very, very thick 2x6s, and they're rounded, I'm going to actually try to go around the whole thing. So we'll see how that goes on the first couple of layups, but I'm going to do 2 layers just like I did the C-Ray, which is going to be far superior than what was in this thing originally. The transom, we're going to go with 2 layers of 1708. Well, depending on the thickness, remember with a Mercruiser outdrive, you want to have the transom between 1.78 inches and 2.25 inches as far as the depth is concerned. So whatever it ends up as, we may have to add to go to it. I may have to do 3, maybe 4 layers of 1708. Not 100% sure until we actually get it in the boat and start measuring. But ideally, we took 2 tabs of 1708 and then skinned the transom to get it nice and protected, and then build up some areas. And then, like I said, 1708 times 2 over each one of the stringers. The deck is going to have chop strand on the bottom, 1 layer, and then on top we're going to go 2 layers. And tab it all the way in with probably 1, maybe 2 tabs of 1708. Kind of depends on what you kind of feel and how it does. And of course, we're going to foam the bottom of the deck. Everybody, there's the foam word. Foam is a necessary thing in my opinion. In this boat, the foam was in 2 big giant blocks on the back, and they had foam stripes, or what you call bricks, underneath the deck. And I was really kind of thinking that would allow water to run away, but it actually didn't. It trapped it. It soaked up just as much water that any other type of foam would. So the secret is sealing those compartments. And those compartments weren't sealed at all. The deck wasn't treated with any type of fiberglass. It just had staples through it, so the water just ran straight through underneath, and it just sat, rotted the deck from underneath. So what I'm going to do, just like with the C-Ray, I'm going to cover the whole deck, get it tabbed in, all that stuff, pop a few holes. We're going to fill the entire underside of this boat with foam, and then we're going to create one big block up in the front. So that way we get our flotation back, and I don't have to do those big giant pods in the back, which hinder engine access. So yes, we're going back with foam. We're doing a 2-part closed cell foam from US Composites. So it's that AB foam we've all seen in the past. I'm a firm believer in it because what it does is it adds rigidity to the bottom of the boat. When you don't have rigidity in these thin hulls, you tend to get stress cracks really easily. And I've got a few stress cracks on this one that I'm just gonna, we're gonna take a Dremel tool and ferret out, and then put in some gel coat and polish it real nice. Once this is all built and everything, the underside's in really, really good shape. It's just got a couple little stress cracks that we'll fix. However, I want that foam to give that extra not really buoyancy. You want to give the extra strength. It also gives puncture strength. So if you hit something, it's not going to just puncture straight through the hull. It's actually going to help keep it nice and rigid. Also helps to make it a lot quieter. So definitely going back with the foam. So that brings me to construction. A lot of people that I've been hearing from are like, oh, why are you using wood, and why are you using polyester and blah, 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 because your boat's rotten. Let's not forget this boat was built in 1986. Being that old, and the fact that it was mass produced. We've all seen through the deconstruction of this boat and through my C-Ray, they're not built very well at all. The 80s and 90s of any manufacturer, I don't care who it is, C-Ray, Glasstron, Bayliner, whatever, seems like all of them were just basically trying to cut money, trying to go as low as they possibly can, cut as many things out of it, and make it as cheap as possible. And what happens is you get a poorly built product. The fiberglass was not sealed against the stringers properly. The stringers were not even encapsulated whatsoever, so it allowed any type of moisture whatsoever. The transom was not even skinned, so it was just basically painted. Anytime you do anything like that, it's gonna rot. There's nothing you can do to stop it. So what we do as restorers or boat builders or whatever, we actually do it correctly. Well, if they were to do that in real boats, the boats would be 3 times the cost and no one would ever buy them. So, it's one of those catch-22 things. So by going back and using proper wood, good quality wood, and encapsulating it with the fiberglass and doing it properly, watching your air bubbles, making sure there's no gaps, and sealing it correctly, you'll be just fine. And that brings me to wood. Oh man, boy, I've got a lot of messages on the wood. Why aren't you using marine plywood? Why aren't you doing this? Why, I really, honestly, the real reason why I'm not using marine plywood is because it's hard as heck to get a hold of here in Dallas. It is a special order. It's, I think for a 3/4 inch piece, it's $80 to $100 plus freight to get it here. I mean, if I special order it from any of the lumber yards, they charge me freight. So really, if you go get a good quality, what they call ACX, which is an exterior grade plywood, you want to make sure the glue is the exterior grade, and you get at least AC. If you can get AB, great. And sometimes you can find the Aruco ply at some of the Home Depot and the Lowe's, but most of them have an AC because it's a little less expensive. A 3/4 inch ply is still close to around $40 for that ACX. And what I do is I just go through what it means is A side is really, really smooth and just has no knots in it. It's just beautiful. The back side is a C, so it's going to have a couple little knots, and it's going to be not as smooth. It's not sanded. I did find some cabinet grade, which is AA on both sides, which is high quality on both sides, but it doesn't have the right glue, and it was more like an oak, so it would not soak the resin in like I really wanted it to. I kind of played around with it. So sticking with an ACX plywood, you're going to be just fine. These boats were built with the same stuff, and like I said before, as long as you seal it properly, you're going to be just fine. The next thing is what we're going to be putting on the inside of this boat, is as far as finish is concerned. If you recall back on the Glastron, I used Durabac, which loved it, great stuff, perfectly fine for our application, but it turned out to be kind of loud when you're in the boat. There's no muffling whatsoever in the deck, so you tend to sound, you hear every wave, you hear everything, and it just sounds very, very kind of, I don't know, it sounds tinny. No offense, tin guys, but it just sounds not that thick, luxurious sound. And so with the Sea Ray, I went with the gel coat finish all throughout the inside of it, and then I used snap-in carpet. And I love that. For my boat, it is the absolute perfect thing. We took kind of that, mid-90s boat and brought it into the 21st century by giving it that gel coat finish that all the new boats have, and did some snap-in carpet. On this boat, totally different. We're going to try to keep it as original as possible to make it just absolutely stick in that era of 1986. So we're going back with the blood red carpet, front to back, with the exception of the engine bay. I'm not going to do carpet in the engine bay. I don't think it belongs back there. I think it's a mistake to put it there. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring that carpet back to just underneath that rear seat, and then in the back we're just going to do an enamel with a hardener in it. And you might be asking, why aren't you using gel coat again? Well, I may end up using gel coat. I reserve the right to change my mind. But with this application and with my last Glastron, man, that enamel worked great. I just loaded it up in my spray gun, sprayed it in there, and I didn't even use the hardener on the other Glastron. But man, I tell you, I'm going to use it this time after paint mold out drive with it on the Sea Ray. Real happy with it. So going to do all the carpet all the way back to keep it nice and nostalgic, and then go in the back right behind the rear seat. We're just going to go ahead and spray it like a light gray or something. I don't want to go with a white because the outside of the boat's gray, and I think the white would clash really bad. So we're going to go with a light gray in the bilge. Just give it that nice, super clean look. Okay, next item on the little docket here is how I am assembling everything. Let's rewind. Original Glastron. I used PL glue for everything, for gluing the transom together, gluing the transom to the skin, gluing in the little patch of the stringer in the back, and then I just glassed over everything. Sea Ray, all I used the PL glue for was pretty much just to bed the stringers. That's all I did, and then I used a mixture of what we call peanut butter, which is resin thickened with stuff called Cabasil, and then little tiny strands of chop strand, which is called oh my god, kitty hair, for the lack of better terms. Makes the resin bind together, because resin alone is not strong. You have to actually strengthen it with with fibers. That's why you use fiberglass, to give it its real strength. So with that, on the C-Ray, is it ate up at least 10 gallons alone in resin just to do that. I went back and looked at kind of the videos, and I remembered and going over some old pictures. When I was putting the transom in, we used peanut butter to do the whole transom. That is a scary, scary thing. For me to slather everything on and get it on there perfect and get it on before that resin kicks off, it just was way too difficult to do. And I did a little experiment. The difference between PL glue and peanut butter, it seemed that PL glue held the transom together better. Like when you put two of the pieces together and then you did PL glue, once it finished drying, the PL glue was almost like it was one piece. You could not get it apart like welding, and it just tended to hold a whole lot better. Whereas when I put it together with peanut butter, it didn't hold as good. You could pop them apart. So, I mean, that may have just been what I did and I put it on too hot or something like that. But I've done some reading about it, and it seems like the PL glue, first of all, it gives you a ton more time to work. You know, it doesn't start really, it says it's workable for 30 minutes, and that gives you more than enough time. But man, sometimes that resin can go off really quickly. That kind of goes back to why epoxy is kind of nice, because it takes so long to kick off. However, PL glue is perfectly fine. It's a urethane-based glue. They use it to hold houses together. They're really, 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 really strong stuff. Once it dries, man, you are not getting it apart. Like I said, it's almost like a weld. So in this boat, we're going to be using all PL glue. However, I may be using some of the thickened resin or peanut butter to do some of my fillets. I'm not sure yet. Sometimes when you thin out or you peanut butter out or fillet a PL glue, it tends to bubble on you and it looks like crap, and it's real hard to glass over. So I was going to play around with some PL glue, and I heard that if you take a spoon that's been dipped in acetone and use it to make your fillet with peanut butter, with the PL glue, it stops that bubbling from happening. So before we go doing all that, I'm going to do a little experiment. If not, I'm just going to bed them in the PL glue, and then we'll just go ahead and put some a small fillet with some peanut butter in there. I think it'll be just fine. So I'm not sure about that yet, but I'd like to be able to use PL glue just because, first of all, it'll keep the cost of the resin way down. The PL glue is just super easy to work with. You just slather it in there and you just run a spoon over the top of it and you're done. You know, doing the extra peanut butter, it's very, very, very time consuming. I went back and looked at all his videos, and I think it was 2 weeks I spent peanut buttering that entire C-Ray. The results are great because it just stays smooth. However, you're talking about adding a tremendous amount of weight when you're doing all that stuff versus PL glue versus peanut butter. They weigh a lot different. I know it's only probably a few pounds, but in a little boat like this, that makes a big difference. So anyway, I'm trying to stick with PL glue 100% on this, because if you looked at the construction of this boat over here, there was no fillets, there was no nothing. It was just basically, they took a long 2x4, let me see if I can get something out. Okay, let's say 2x4 here. All they did was just wrap CSM, maybe a 2-ounce CSM over the top of it, and then just laid it down. So there was a huge gap, the transition from the stringer onto the deck, or the hull. So whatever we do, we're doing a whole lot better. I'm kind of frustrated with the PL glue, with the way it globs up. Makes it hard to make your transition. So if I can figure out how to keep that stuff from bubbling, we'll be perfectly fine. So anyway, that's kind of the things that are going on right now and how we're going to be doing this. I'm sure there'll be changes. I'm sure this will be, it's going to constantly morph throughout this build. But at least just answer some questions to everybody that I've been asked a lot of, is why I'm doing certain things and why I'm not, and you know, that type of thing. So now we've kind of got a video that kind of recaps everything, answers everybody's question, and we can go on down the road and start building this boat. So should be getting some supplies in about 4 days. Yay! And then we can start really building this thing. I'll talk to you soon, guys. Thanks for watching.